It wasn't dominant, but the Nuggets got a surprisingly pretty good win over the Pelicans without Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas. I don't know how that works, but it kind of felt like it. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. My name is Matt Moore, and I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joining you on a Saturday night to recap the Nuggets win over the Pelicans on Friday night, 116-105 in New Orleans. The road trip continues unblemished. We'll get to all of that. Apologies for not getting one in on Friday night. I had an NBA bet stream. I do a league pass stream from a betting perspective with the league, so Fridays are tough for me. And then Adam has a lot going on with DNVR this weekend, which you should check out at thednvr.com. And so we didn't get around to it on Friday night. And so we are here on Saturday night to go ahead and hit this up. I'm going to recap the game, talk about the bench, and look forward to the rest of the road trip as this goes along. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you guys making us part of your day, making us your first listen each and every day. All right, so the Nuggets get the win on Friday night over the Pelicans, 116-105. You can feel like this game was maybe closer than it should have been, right? Because of the bench collapse and all of the types of things that happened, and it was kind of closer. But look, the big picture on this one, I think you got to keep in mind is Jokic goes for 29 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals. He's good at basketball. They get a good contributions from other guys, including Aaron Gordon and Bryn Forbes, who we'll talk about. And I thought this was a much better performance when I watched it than what the box score tells me. I watched this one live as I was trying to do the bet stream before the stream went on, and kind of kept an eye on it on my second screen. And then I went back and watched it clip by clip. And I really like the Nuggets' effort in this one. And the numbers, I think, actually do tell a pretty good story if you look at the big picture here, which is the Pelicans wound up with a 101.9 offensive rating, and the Nuggets wound up with a 112. That's like perfect. That's like absolute perfection of what you want. You want a 112 plus offensive rating and a below 105 defensive rating. And that combo is pretty dynamite. The bigger thing here, though, is I just thought the Nuggets' effort was really high in this one. Even though the shots didn't always fall and the Pelicans made some runs. And yeah, look, the Pelicans were without Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas. This team's trash when those guys don't play. It's not their fault. They're missing Zion Williamson, too. You're talking about literally without their 3 best players. I think Denver fans know what happens when you're missing your best guys. It gets kind of tough, especially versus a team as good as Denver. So they're starting Willie Hernan-Gomez, who surprisingly had some plays go their way, these type of things. So in general, they should have gotten this win, but they also got a double-digit win, led for the duration of the game. Never, there wasn't a panic mode except for when the bench kind of let up for a brief stretch in the second quarter. All these types of things. In general, this is a solid win. They just got a solid, good win versus a bad team, and they kept their road streak going. They have continued. They've won now 4 in a row. 3 of the road trip. They've got the Bucks on Sunday. We'll recap that with Adam, and I'll talk about some of the stuff with him as well on Sunday night. Then the Wolves and the Jazz, and we'll talk about kind of what the rest of the road trip looks like from that perspective. But especially, I think, in a game in which you can say the Pelicans were definitely worse off injury-wise, which is a rarity this season for the Nuggets, missing Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. But they were in a rougher spot. But no Will Barton with illness on Friday night, and they still get this win, and they still have guys step up. A lot of notable things, I think, from the rotation. We'll obviously get to the Bone thing in the second segment. I do want to just go ahead and really kind of circle back around to what Jokic did. We cannot get accustomed to this. We can't just let us breeze by and be like, yeah, Jokic had a good night. Jokic had 29 points on 19 shots. He had 13 rebounds. He had 10 assists. He had 2 steals. He had 6 turnovers. The turnovers were a problem. Their turnovers in the first half were really bad. But as the game went on, he took more and more control, and he really wound up dominating the game. So he did his part. They won Jokic's minutes by 15. That's what you want to see. You want to see them win those minutes by double digits, and they did. This formula is pretty even, right? We're going to talk about Austin Rivers. CT's in the chat here, and he wants to talk about Austin Rivers, we'll talk about Austin. He's been absolutely fantastic. Do want to let you know that if you're looking to catch this show and kind of get in on the topic of conversations and be in the chat and be a part of this, it's usually late night because that's how we roll. But if you want to do that, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the best way for you guys to support the show. If you guys want to help us out, if you're like, I love this show, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is the best way. Tell a friend, tell your parents, call it Ma. Call it Ma. Say, Ma, I need you to subscribe to Locked On Nuggets. That's a thing that you need to do. So with Jokic, Willie Hernangomez obviously wasn't going to get it done. But I will say the improved spacing from the Nuggets, I think, was really key in terms of their offensive performance. Because if you look at it, when they started, they played Bryn Forbes a lot more with Jokic, and I think it really genuinely helped. Like in the first quarter, Bryn was a +5 in that stretch in the first quarter. Bryn wound up in the second quarter. That's when everything fell off, right? Because he's with that bench unit with certain people, but it wasn't all his fault. But Bryn wound up like a 0 in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter, really in that closing time, he brings Bryn Forbes in the close. He winds up +4. He goes 2 of 2. He goes in that fourth quarter, he goes 4 of 7, 2 of 3. Like Bryn came in that fourth quarter and kind of helped close them out. They need that spacing, and that was a big deal. And so I look at that as saying, like, this is a real positive. If you surround Jokic with NBA caliber players, you're going to get NBA MVP caliber results. Delia says, Delia, I think. Joker to me sometimes feels bipolar, especially when facing bad teams and can't turn on or off whenever he wants to. I think Jokic played in general pretty great. Like, I don't think Jokic played badly in this game at all. I think if you look at it, like, there may have been like stretches, right, where he's doesn't necessarily take over as much, but I also think like he shouldn't have to versus the Pelicans team. Like, you should be able to get what you want. And that's a lot of this too, is when he needs to take over, he's taken over this year consistently. And I think he's been pretty consistent. Love the effort for the Nuggets in this one. Again, I want to kind of circle back to that. I'll talk about this in the second segment. We'll wrap up with this game and we'll move forward. But I did want to kind of talk about, they were physical and present even when the shots weren't falling. This is a big deal. It's not always going to be easy, but the Nuggets really did, like, they were physically into guys in this game. Even when the Pelicans would find open threes, like a lot of their problems were just turnovers. And instead, their physicality, if they play with that level of effort and energy, they're going to win the games that they should. And that's all you got to do. If you come out versus the teams like the Pelicans, especially without Ingram and JV, and you just give the effort that you need to, you're going to walk away with the win. We're going to take a break. And then we're going to come back and I want to talk about the rotation with Bones and how that changes things. I want to talk about Austin Rivers' contributions. And we'll talk a little bit more about one thing that I thought was a really big deal in this game. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I, of course, have to tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best protein bar on the market. It tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. It makes it easier to stick to your New Year's resolution because it tastes so good, you're going to want to eat it. They're covered in 100% chocolate, but they only got 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and only 4 net carbs, along with 17 grams of protein. Good stuff in, no bad stuff in. You get all these type of things. You can go through and replace all your secret stashes of candy or whatever else and just put a Built Bar there, and you'll wind up coming out ahead. They got so many great flavors: coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel. I've talked about that's my favorite, mint brownie, and many, many more. Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors. So check out Built.com often to see what's new. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making this part of your day. Excited to be with you here on a Saturday night. We will have recap of the Bucks game as well as Adam's thoughts on the Pelicans game on Sunday night as the road trip continues. Want to talk a little bit about the bench. All right, so second half, they have the collapse in the first half, and it's bad. And then the second half, Bones Hyland plays 12 minutes and 43 seconds. Austin Rivers plays 18 minutes and 50 seconds. Monte Morris plays 16 minutes and 14 seconds. Marcus Howard plays 13 seconds in garbage time. And Facu Campazzo does not play. There's been a clamoring for him to go to Bones Hyland over Campazzo. And more particularly, for them alone to let Bones run point. Because when he's out there with Campazzo, Campazzo's got to have the ball or he's yeah, I gotta say, he's useless. Like, he doesn't have anything he can do. He doesn't have the ball. If he can't create, there's really nothing that he can do. He's not a spot up shooter. He's not like, he can cut a little bit, but only so much you can do at 5'7". So Bones runs point, and in the second half, the bench unit was way, way better. Like, Bones, it was a 0 in the plus minus, but it doesn't matter. It's more important that he had 4 assists and they stayed above water. DeMarcus goes 1 of 6 in this second half, but is a +5. And I'll tell you, like, there's a question: how would you summarize Cousins' impact on the team so far, and does he have a spot moving forward? So today it was reported, Katie Wingy came out and said that they basically ended his deal and then signed him to another 10 days. So he's back on another 10-day. They'll reevaluate him on this, and then we'll see where he goes. I would keep him unless they can say that they definitely have a better guy. If there's a G League option who's younger, right, and has the same size, which is rare, I think you should look at it. If you can get a center, I'll tell you that, like, centers are very hot commodity on the trade market right now. The Nuggets have called about Jalen Smith from the Suns. I have that from 2 people not associated with the Nuggets. So they've inquired about Jalen Smith. I don't think it's going to happen because, like, 5 teams have called about Jalen. They're looking for a center. I think Cousins, if they have to go with him, I think he's fine. I think a lot of the shooting stuff, look, there are problems in terms of, there was a possession, I think, in the second quarter where Cousins got the ball down low and he just should have finished it. Like, there were guys on him, but it's a move that I've seen him finish 50, 100 times in his career. He couldn't do it because he just doesn't have the lift. Like, the Achilles, he just doesn't have it. And so that's a problem. I will tell you, defensively, I like his effort. There's been very little quit. He fouls, right? He fouls and he picks up techs and there's all this stuff. Like, that's part of the Cousins thing, right? But second half, 7 minutes and 33 seconds, no fouls from him. Not a single foul. And that's important. I think Cousins' effort defensively has been a lot better than I expected. And so I'm kind of like hopeful that really there might be, if he can get his legs under him, if he can get past whatever the injuries were that kept them from signing him for like a week or so, about 10 days, I really do think that there's maybe some upside on Cousins. I think that I like the fit of him and Bones. Like, their personalities are not in line, but I will say, like, Bones just knows, like, he knows how to throw a pocket pass. So he can get the ball to Cousins. And I think that that's really helped. If you have Bones, Cousins, Forbes, you have interior gravity, playmaker on the perimeter who can shoot, spot up weapon on the outside. You can surround those two with size for rebounding or shooting or speed, any of those things, and you are in pretty good shape. Like, there's a lot of cop about, like, Blackburn, who I love dearly, like, really wants them to get a wing. I don't know that they need it with where the rotation is going to be in the playoffs. It would help for sure, but I don't know that there's going to be room for them to add it because the quality of wing that they need, I don't think is attainable. But this game was a good example of this rotation works. It's going to work. Even the Pelicans, you could say, like, all right, Bones was a 0 versus a Pelicans team missing their 3 best players. All right, fair. I would just say that in most games, all you got to do is not, again, the bar is just don't be minus double digits. If you're -8, that's fine. Because Jokic is averaging +10. You're still going to win the game. That's fine. You just got to not get obliterated. And I'll say this, like, we're seeing a trend here where if he has options, Malone's going a little bit away from Campazzo, and it's working. It just is. Again, don't like it. Not rooting for it. I'm just telling you, this is better for them. And it has been. Bryn Forbes has made an impact. Like, Bryn Forbes in that fourth quarter, like, second half, 5 of 8 from the field, 14 points for Bryn with 2 of 3. He punished them when they overcorrected on him. Like, he was great in that capacity. 14 points. That's 14 points off the bench. It's exactly what they needed. And a couple other guys in here that were good off the bench. Zeke Naji had one of his stronger games, just in terms of, he shot the ball really well. He was attacking. Zeke was really, his confidence comes and goes. But when Zeke plays with confidence, he is a really impactful player for this team. And again, I think you look at Bones, Zeke, Forbes, Cousins. Those guys are NBA guys. Those guys can play together. You got athleticism and size and spacing and shooting. I really do think that they've got something there that they can kind of build on. Final segment here before we go to break. I do want to tell you about Austin Rivers because he's just been tremendous, right? Like, I mean, this is coming. Rivers for the game goes 12 points, 4 of 6 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3. He keeps up the shooting hot streak. And that's my second half stats. Sorry, wrong line. Rivers goes for 12 points, 4 of 6 shooting, and is a plus 19 in this game. I'll say this, he had some, here's the thing with Rivers, I think that's incredible. That's important to note. Rivers is not a lockdown guy. Rivers gives good effort. He just gets beat sometimes flat off the foot. There's been this idea that he doesn't always give good effort. I don't agree with that. I just think that consistently. Now, I'll say this. Rivers is not going to keep up with a guy. If he blows by him, Rivers is he lost him. But he doesn't stop in the middle of a play. That's really bad defense. And nobody on the Nuggets really does that. Anymore. So I think Rivers has been really good on that end. And I think that the shooting obviously is just huge. Again, I've said this from the beginning. Austin Rivers is an NBA guard. He's going to have bad shooting nights, but he's going to have good shooting nights. That's why he's not a starter. That's why he's not a star. He's not good every night, but you can get enough from him over the course of a season to help you win games. And he has definitely helped them win games recently. Tommy says in the chat, Zeke's playing well, looks better at the 4. Totally agree. Not a 5. He'll be a 5. I'll say this. Zeke will be a 5 by the time that he's 26, 27. Because he'll have multiple years in NBA strength and conditioning. That's going to bulk him up. He'll get better at rebounding. He'll just add muscle. He'll get, for lack of a better word, not battle hardened, game hardened. And that will make him a more physical presence. He'll wind up as a center. Right now, he's definitely a 4, and he plays much better when he's next to a 4. He plays well next to Jokic. Everyone plays well next to Jokic. And he plays well next to Cousins. You give him a legit 5. And I think that Zeke Naji really is helpful as a stretch 4 who can also do some stuff. There are going to be defensive issues. It's got to be situational. Not going to play a lot in the playoffs, but I think he's given them a lot of good things. But look at this game. They got good contributions they got a dominant performance from Jokic. Bones played point. Austin gave them good minutes. Bryn Forbes hit shots. These little adjustments make a big deal. It just lowers their margin for error, which that's been a lot of the problem is the Nuggets margin for error was tiny. It was just little bitty. The bigger problem for that was opponents could always get back in the game. Opponents' margin for error with the Nuggets was huge because they could count on a dry spell. They could count on a bad bench stint, which meant that every starter stint had to be double digits or they were losing. You just take away a little bit of that, and the Nuggets are in a much better spot. And last thing on this game, I do want to shout out Aaron Gordon. 20 points on 8 of 18 shooting isn't great efficiency, right? He goes 2 of 8 from 3, 2 assists, 4 boards. I was very confused by some of the reviews on his game from various people. So, look, Aaron's going to shoot sometimes. If he's got open looks, he's going to take them. I thought Aaron's defense was phenomenal. If you go back and you watch, and if you just go by clip, Aaron's defense was chef's kiss. I mean, it was tremendous. He absolutely just boarded off guys. He had huge plays, and he was a big reason of one of the biggest edges I thought in this game, which was rebounding. The numbers don't show this, which I think is really fascinating. Okay, so the numbers tell me that I'm lying because the Pelicans in this game had a 32.7% offensive rebound rate. That's extremely high compared to what the Nuggets give up over the course of a game. If you look at second chance points in this game, the Pelicans wound up with 20 second chance points. That's crazy to me, right? And 6 of them come off Willie Hernangomez, and Herb Jones generates 6. I thought the Nuggets rebounding was actually really good in this game. Statistically, it wasn't, but I like their effort. They were absolutely crashing the boards. Jokic in particular, I think a lot of the starters were really, really hammering the boards. And I felt like they just gave really good effort in getting to those rebounds. Their sense on those was good. Some crazy caroms, and I think there was a lot of tip in for Willie Hernangomez and Herb Jones, who's again very good. But in general, when I watched this game, if you told me an 11-point win over the Pelicans that was in some doubt, I probably, without Ingram and JV, I would have been I'd probably give him a C or D on this game. I really like their effort in this one. I just thought the Nuggets played very well and was impressed with this victory from a building standpoint. We'll take a break. We'll come back. And when we come back, I want to talk about the rest of this road trip, what it means for them as everything goes along. And we'll talk about kind of the bigger picture narratives of the Nuggets. We'll talk about that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I do need to tell you about BetOnline. There's less football being played, but BetOnline has way more stuff to bet on this playoff season. Scores, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. Hey, congrats on your new coach, guys. Hope you get Aaron Rodgers. I mean that sincerely. I don't. BetOnline is the number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And with a new year comes a new updated desktop and mobile website. To sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to get started. It's not just football. BetOnline's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen. The NBA trade deadline's Thursday, February 10th at 3 p.m., and the Locked On NBA podcast will be covering it live from 2 to 4 p.m. Join Kim Becker, my guy John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to Locked On NBA YouTube and turn your notifications on so you know when they go live. All right, final segment here on Locked On Nuggets on Saturday. If you are listening to this and you're like, how do I do this with the Sunday show? Listen to this one and then go listen to the one with Adam. It'll be in your feed. Just listen in order if you're confused. All right, so the Nuggets go to 3-0 on the road trip. Now, look, Pistons are the Pistons, right? So that's like a win that you should get, and it was closer than it needed to be. On the back-to-back, they get the Nets without KD and Harden and Kyrie, and they get a win 124-118, okay? Then they go into New Orleans in the letdown spot. I'll be honest with you, I was a little worried about this one. This was one that I was kind of circled because they've had problems with New Orleans. JV being out, I think, was a bigger deal than Ingram. But still, they get the win. So now they face the Bucks on Sunday. And, it'll be crazy. I think, look, they're dogs in this game. The Nuggets are underdogs in this game, and they should be. Like, there's a reason why the Nuggets are underdogs in this game. They're going up against Giannis, Andrew, and Chris Middleton right now. We'll see what the injury report says. No way to tell really these days. It's pretty up and down. The Nuggets have had a lot of success against Milwaukee in Milwaukee through the years. They just match up well with them for a variety of reasons. Part of it's scheme. Shooting is going to be a big deal in this one. The Bucks have Grayson Allen. Hope no one gets hurt. They've got Middleton, obviously. Drew can hit. Giannis is a beast. AG is going to guard Giannis, and he's going to get beat. And that's just how it is. And no one should blame him because that's a problem. Like, they need to not foul. That's the really big deal with the Nuggets versus the Bucks, is they need to not foul. When you listen to this, the game may already be over. So I want to kind of get like a big picture look. Even if they lose this game, and they're 3-1 on the road trip, as long as they split between the Wolves and the Jazz, which I think they can, the Jazz will likely have Mitchell and Gobert back. Mitchell's been out with a concussion, but he should be back. Gobert is much more day-to-day with a sprain. He's got a calf strain rather. And so he's like real touch and go. And I don't know if he's going to be back for that game or not. If they're full strength, they probably will lose to the Jazz as they have this season. The Jazz are a much better team, but this is going to be the Nuggets' best chance. They are a much better team after the addition of Bryn Forbes and with the rotation changes that they've made, especially if they stick. Like, this is an opportunity, I think, for them to really test this new lineup, right? Is if they can get good minutes out of the bench and just keep this within range, I think the Nuggets can steal it second half. You just got to not let the Bucks get too far ahead. The Bucks can blow you out if you have a bad quarter. That can absolutely happen. They are explosive. However, if they can keep it kind of within corral, they need to slow the pace down. I think they can get this win. The Wolves game, I think, is very winnable. I like the Wolves a lot this year. They're a much tougher team. They played the Nuggets well in the beginning. Russell, I think, is going to be questionable for that game, probably. If Russell doesn't play, the Nuggets or the Wolves are very bad. And this is a very weird trend, but it just objectively is true. Like, for my bet stream, I had Wolves Suns on Friday. They are objectively like just a much worse team if D'Angelo Russell doesn't play. So that's an opportunity to get another win there. And if you're like, well, it'd be nice if they could beat some good teams, you're just trying to get through this. Again, Survive and advance is the goal here. You keep the good times rolling. You don't get mired into like a losing streak, right? Because if they lose to the Bucks and then they lose to the Wolves and they lose to the Jazz, and you got 3-3, that's now like a disappointment because you got handed the Nets win, and to a degree, you got a very easy spot for the Pelicans. So you need to get 2 of the next 3 versus the Bucks, the Wolves, and the Jazz. You do that, you come out of that, you come home, and you've got Pelicans again, probably with JV. That one will be tougher. The Nets, they'll have Kyrie in that game, and Harden will probably be back. Tougher game. You got the Knicks. That's a win, I think. I think they beat the Knicks pretty handily. There's a real chance here that the Nuggets are going to make that run that we've been talking about. It may not, and I've thought a lot about this in from the perspective of the run may not look like what you want it to look like, where it's dominant basketball night in, night out. But if you look at it, the Nuggets are 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. Okay, if they're able to keep this up, they're now 1 game back of the Jazz in the loss column. 1 game, right? They're 4 games back of the Grizzlies, who just keep winning. Just keep winning. They will not stop. If the Grizzlies ever tail off, there's a chance there. Again, the Nuggets are very well set up to make a second half run. I do think, though, that it is important at this point in the season. They need to get 2 of the next 3 versus the Bucks, the Wolves, and the Jazz. If they go 0-3 versus those teams, I will probably consider that to be a disappointment and kind of a mid-season, small-term failure for them to do. They got to figure out a way to get those wins. Casey Mack in the comments, why does it seem like we always face the Jazz in the second game of a back-to-back? I don't know. Like, there's probably something there with this one's the one that annoys me the most, right? It's one thing if the Nuggets are home and then they go to Utah. I get that. That one makes sense because it's like, all right, it's a short trip. They do that a lot where they're like, oh, the Wolves are going to play the Kings, or the Warriors are going to play the Kings on a back-to-back because it's like 2 hours, right? You can drive to that. Or they'll do Houston and Dallas on a back-to-back, right? There's a 3-hour difference there. It's an hour-and-a-half flight. That's no problem. Having the Nuggets go from, the Nets game was crammed in here, right? But having the Nuggets go from Minnesota to Utah I will admit, that's a pretty bad one. But again, this is like the end of the really rough stretch, I think, for the Nuggets schedule. It gets much easier after this trip in particular. Connor asks, do you think Jokic MVP is a lock if the Nuggets make it to top 3 or 4 in the standings? It's a good question, Connor. I would tell you, I think it depends on what Curry does. So if the Sixers get the 1 seed, Embiid probably wins, and I don't necessarily think he'll deserve it, but I think he probably does win. If the Bucks get the 1 seed, if they come out of nowhere and just rattle off 10 of 12, Giannis probably winds up taking that. There hasn't been as much enthusiasm for Giannis as I thought there would be. There's a lot of enthusiasm for 2 players right now, and it's Curry and Embiid. Those are the 2 players. Like, all the players that were on Curry, all the voters that were on Curry early have now transitioned and are all on Embiid. Now, I think Embiid will probably either get hurt or slow down. I don't want that to happen. I hope it doesn't, but you have to be realistic about what we've seen in his career. Curry has had some good games recently. And I think that makes me a little nervous that they're just going to be like, if Curry's got such a lead, right, on Jokic and the Nuggets, that could wind up being tough. Curry had another bad game tonight, though, I will say. 5 of 18 from the field and 3 of 10 from 3 for 19 points. Like, another bad performance. So maybe he hasn't fixed things. But if Curry gets hot again, the Warriors are going to finish with a better record than the Nuggets. And if Curry's shooting percentages stabilize and the Warriors finish with a better one, Curry's going to get the vote. I kind of think Steph has been way too bad, Matt. This is Sean Cortez. I know what bettors say, but he's been slumping since the calendar turned in December, and he struggles without Dre. I don't disagree with you, Sean. It's just a matter of the season's not over yet. You have to think about, like, what's the story of the season. The story, one of the stories of the season is that the Warriors are back to being a contender. After being a play-in tournament team last year that lost, they are back to being the 2nd seed in the West. You could say, like, he's been slumping, sure, right? The voters will forgive that if he goes on a Curry run. Like, they just will. They'll forgive it. If he pulls out, because you're like, well, it's been since December, it's been 2 months. Okay. But here's the problem. His percentages could wind up still being great if he rattles off a great February, March, and April. If he stabilizes to Curry norms, because here's a good example. Curry's shooting 37% from three. That's the slump here. 37%. Chris Paul's at 32. I don't think that there's like I'll just say this. The bar for Steph Curry to win MVP is much lower than it is for Jokic. The bar for Joel Embiid to win MVP is much lower than it is for Jokic. The bar for Giannis is about on par, which is weird. I thought there'd be a lot more like, hey, Giannis has kind of arrived as like the best player in the league and defending champs and all these things. But for whatever reason, people are just like, ho-hum. Whereas if you look at it, Giannis' season has been objectively better than Embiid's. It just has been. But the Bucks haven't won as many games. So this is going to come down to a lot about whether or not how many games they win. JAS Banger says, I care if Jokic gets another MVP, especially with the numbers he's putting up this year. But how much does Jokic want the award? 0. Jokic wants the award 0. He does not care. I don't even think the money matters to him. Usually in these situations, I'm like, well, the MVP bonus is probably really nice. You get a huge bonus for MVP. I don't think he cares. I don't think he cared last year. I don't think he cares this year. I don't think he looks at it. I don't think he cares. I am a very cynical person when it comes to these things and think guys always look at the stats and always check up on these things. NBA players are vain. I don't think Jokic cares. I genuinely don't. I really, genuinely, truly do not. And hey, that could be a bad thing if his performance was inconsistent, but he does everything that you want. I don't think it's like a bonus. I don't think it's like he should get it because he's so humble and doesn't care about the stat. No, like, it's okay to want the MVP. It's okay to want to be crowned as the best player in the league. That's okay. But I think Jokic just wants to win. I think Jokic wants a title. I don't know what he's going to do when he wins, but that's really, I think, what it's got. Okay, let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate the guys hanging out in the chat. You guys are great. We will be back on Sunday night with an episode after the Bucks game. We'll get you caught up on how that goes. Plus, a look ahead to the week that is going to be. We'll cover all that stuff and see how Adam Mares is doing. We'll talk to you guys on Sunday night. Remember, subscribe and like the YouTube channel. Hit that up. Give us the 5-star reviews. I haven't talked about the thing, so I deserve the 5-star reviews. Not even during the BetOnline did I do that. I want that noted. So give us the like and subscribe on YouTube. You can join us on the show live. We'll talk to you guys again on Sunday night. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.